So why do we compete all the time? Is it in our nature? What is it about competition that we always do it?
We are born in a competitive nature. Our nature is a complete desire to receive, to enjoy. And a person enjoys food, sex, and family just like all the other animals, but because we are human, we also have desires above what our body demands as an animal, as a beast, because our body is just an animal. It's on the animate level. But on the human level, or the speaking level, we crave money, respect, power, and knowledge. And it turns out that those desires depend on the society. How do you measure money? How do you measure respect? What type of respect? And in what way? Control, power. How do you control and who do you control? Knowledge. What do you need to know and how to use that knowledge? There are many fashions of that. Throughout history, we constantly develop by the ego that grows from generation to generation. What I'm talking about in the meantime is the nature of modern man. Our nature is constantly developing egoistically. We constantly, increasingly want to enjoy the world, to benefit. And when people are together, they create a social consensus according to the desires working within them. They agree on what money is and what are the values that are worthy. And then a person lives by the society's standards. So then one starts measuring himself towards those standards. First of all, he feels lesser if he is somewhat inferior to the society. So some things, even if he doesn't want to compete in them, he is still pushed to maintain some standard, to have some sort of dignity, some sort of status that gives him power, that gives him control. And this is something the society forces him to. Besides that, by the media and by other means, society manipulates man to provoke competition. That competition is, of course, in our nature too. It only depends what is the period of time we live in. Sometimes it is more towards money, the other time it's more towards knowledge.
I'm missing the difference here between comparing myself to a certain social standard to competing with others.
This is one thing. I need to meet some standard, and therefore I at least calm myself down, that I'm like all the others. Most people don't look for being hotshots, being heroes. I'm not trying to be a Rockefeller, although Rockefeller was a common person at some point. But this isn't something I look for. It isn't something I crave. I don't seem to think that I have the big enough desire to pay so much in order to achieve something. So it depends on what goals and values a person has. So most people eventually see the general standards in society and they want to meet them. For instance, among artists, it's all a matter of respect. Among politicians, it's about control, power. Among scientists, it's a matter of knowledge. And among people who are drawn to money, then it's money.
Let me see if I understand correctly. I have all these desires in me, and with respect to each of them, I check the social standard, and I want to fit in to the standard. Like, say I have to make $50,000 a year, otherwise I feel like I'm very poor, and I have to at least have one level of college degree, otherwise I feel stupid or whatever, illiterate. But each person has specific areas that he wants to excel in, to maybe be more, prominent.
Yes, that's true. And then one chooses a goal, and according to that goal, he starts living. So the competition is always limited to some boundaries, to some area, and to some level.
And who sets the rules?
It's actually determined by man from within. The society, on the one hand, provides him with some examples of what should be achieved, and man sees according to his ability, according to his status, according to the society around him. All of those things eventually come together, and then he makes a decision. And of course, the competition is a positive thing, because if a person would not envy at others, he wouldn't develop.
Any competition is good?
I think that any competition which is limited, which is under the boundaries determined by society, that the society determined that those types of competitions do not endanger the health of and the well-being of society. In all those cases, the competition is good. Because if the competition is criticized by society, controlled by society, then by competition we can develop. We can develop better products, for instance. We can advance in our professions. People can become greater and greater experts. If we're talking about competition between children, that helps them develop as well. If we're talking about sports, that creates better achievements. Again, if it's under the right limitations, it can grow our achievements. And these are things that humanity can take pride in. But a competition can be negative only if it works against humanity's general development.
Just talking about whether competition is good or not. With the financial crisis that we're still struggling with, for example, the whole thing started with competition. That they were talking about the subprime mortgages and all that. People were banks were competing who would give more loans to more irresponsible loans. They were having no boundaries, no checkups, because they were trying to lend as much money as possible. It was an unchecked competition.
This isn't the competition that is wrong here. It's the limits that we've determined. The criticism, the inspection, that didn't work. So that's not competition already. Competition is that we're in the same conditions, more or less, and everyone tries to do better things along the same lines. If the banks would work correctly, and all those companies would work correctly, then they would lower the interest, they would examine themselves better, and they wouldn't inflate all those bubbles.
Yes, but their interest is to make as much money as possible. It's not to compete according to the rules. So the whole problem is what? Regulation or?
No, the problem is not the competition itself. The problem is that the society didn't create enough inspection.
Regulation.
Yes, correct. Everyone is talking about it. But the problem is that if you take competition out of human life, humanity will not develop. Nothing will be left. We will not advance. Also, how can you kill or kind of uproot this thing? How can you? If I look at someone, I immediately compare myself with him. This one is taller than me, this one is shorter than me, this one is younger than me, fatter than me, thinner, richer, more or less than me. That's something we always do. Like it or not, subconsciously, if I look at something, I can't look at it, I can't see it, unless I compare it with something, black and white, big and small, and so forth. Competition, that is, is something that is inherent in us, in our nature. Without it, we cannot detect anything. What is competition? It is when one thing is different from another.
Yes, but why does something A has to be better or worse than something B?
Because that's my nature, my will to receive, my will to enjoy. That's how it portrays everything to me, as better or worse. That's the only way I see things, I discern things. I cannot discern anything if it's not different from something else, better or worse in some sort of way, bitter and sweet, truth and false, tall, short, and so on. Doesn't matter what. What I'm trying to say is that competition is not like the way we think about it usually. It is the determination of a state, of an outcome, of a phenomenon. All of that comes from comparison, and the comparison itself is already competition. And what I wanted to say, and I'm saying it again, let's look at babies. Look, they look at others and they think, I won't give it to the other baby, I will give something else. These things are in our nature. If we uproot them, we will not develop, we will not be able to advance. However, the advancement, the progress has to be corrected. We have to understand our nature and what is the way we can give it a proper shape, a proper form, so that our competition will be positive. Let's start competing in a positive way.